Well, thanks for tuning in to the Essential Craftsman podcast. I'm Nate. Our guest today is Adam Booth. Adam is the host of Abom79, which is a really beloved YouTube channel all about machining. It's been around for a long time. He's made a lot of videos. He's gotten well over 100 million views. And to me, it kind of really represents the essence of YouTube. It's very niche content, extremely high quality in terms of the valuable information that he's putting up on the internet for everybody to see and learn from. So we're big fans. We met Adam a couple years ago in Texas, and he is just a really genuine and sincere and just the best. And we're lucky to have my dad in this interview with us as well. So I hope you enjoy it. Without any further ado, Adam Booth. Thanks for taking the time to join us. You are one of the original YouTube Workbench channels, probably the most beloved machinist on the internet, and I'm really excited to kind of get into this. We have met a few years ago, so thank you for taking the time, and how are you doing?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for inviting me on. I wanted to make sure that you guys know that I was very appreciative of contacting me and asking me to be on the podcast because I enjoy talking with you guys anyway, just like you're, great friends. So
yeah, that's how I feel. It was great. We got to connect twice down in Texas, and it didn't line up this fall, but I enjoyed it both times a lot, and we're still hoping for you to make it out to the West Coast.
Oh yeah, so we definitely want to make it out there.
Cool.
Let's start with just machining because it's going to come up a lot, and I don't want to leave any of our listeners behind right off the bat. And so if somebody would have asked me 5 years ago to explain machining, I don't think I could have done it. Could you explain what machining is, how it works, the basic tools? Both of you can take a swing at it for someone who, for one reason or another, kind of missed that, part of growing up.
Mm-hmm. Go, Adam. You know this, man.
Let me see if I can give you the best explanation. Of course, there's different aspects of machining. So you have, different categories of, different types of machine shops. You have production machine shops, which is what most people are familiar with now, CNC work. And then you have machine shops that are like mine, which are manual machining, industrial repair. So you're doing a lot of one-offs and a lot of repair on parts for industry and different mechanical things, things that break and wear out that need to have some type of machining or repair, or maybe even welding and repair done. So that's where I come into play. I've always been a manual machinist, growing up with Dad in our shop, learning the manual machinist trade and learning how to not only build things, but repair things as well.
So dive a little deeper. It's easy. It's easy for people like us to assume people know the difference between manual machining and CNC machining. Speak to that and the massive change that's happened in your industry in the last 20 years.
Right. So CNC machining is more in line of what the world sees today with mass production. So if you have parts where you want to make hundreds or thousands or millions of, the same repetitive parts, that's where CNC machines come into play. Those are computer numerically controlled machines. Okay.
There you go.
And manual machines are just that. They're manually operated. So you have hand wheels and cranks and levers and all kinds of things on these machines, and you're the one that's actually running the machine. So most people know me from running the manual lathes and the manual mill. So you have hand cranks and hand wheels that you're turning. You're moving the dials. Whereas a CNC machine, it's all programmed into the computer, and you're relying on the machine itself to, make the cuts for you.
So that's something that I didn't realize before. 15 years ago, I stepped into metalwork more seriously. Is that when the machinist is there running those dials and those levers, he's doing the math in his head. While you're spinning that dial, you're counting the thousands and tens of
Yes.
thousands. And so in the act of working your hands to work the machine, your brain is keeping up and dictating every move down to the teeniest fractions of an inch, and adding and subtracting and keeping track of the hysteresis in the machine. And it's amazing.
Yeah, you're exactly right there. And sometimes I'm so used to it now, I don't actually think about it in that sense. But you're right, because like if you're running a manual lathe and you want to make another cut, you're looking down at the dial, and you know how many thousandths of an inch that you want to increase the cross slide for a feed. You have to look down there and then count it as you dial it.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas a computer machine, you're not doing that. It's all programmed in there to do that, but you're not manually having to do it.
And
So-
you have to know how much of a cut your tool is going to take, and how the grind on the end of the tool is going to respond to the depth of the cut, and whether the chips are going to be broken by the grind. And there's just so much going on. It blows me away.
Yeah, there's a lot to it, just like you said.
So being a machinist, I'm going to sum this up. You're making metal steel parts with different machines to create the parts and pieces that keep trucks, equipment, machines, other industrial items running. Is that primarily the product is parts and pieces of other machines? I've always wondered, does being a machinist refer to that you operate a machine, or that you're making or repairing machines? Which machines are we talking about? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, and I think depending on where you're at in the world, it's considered different things. But I know here in the USA, we're considered a machinist whenever you run machine tools. That's what these machines are considered, as a machine tool, whether it be a lathe, a mill, a drill press, my shaper that I run, any kind of big machine that's used to cut and shape metals is considered a machine tool. And so if you operate those, you're considered a machinist.
Regardless of whether you're making a tool for a machine, or maybe you're making like a pocket knife or something.
Right. And you have different categories of machinists there as well, just like we talked about CNC. So a lot of the people that run CNCs today, which there's a lot of those, they're considered CNC machinists. You have CNC operators, CNC programmers, and then going back to like what kind of work that I do, you even have tool and die guys there. So they get into even more precision and precise work than what I have shown that I do.
So let's back up just a little bit for the people that are listening to this, and talk about the difference, or essentially the three ways to create metal parts: casting, forging, and machining. And so what Adam has specialized in and mastered right from his dad's knee is carving away the parts of the metal that you don't want to be there, in order to uncover the part that's lurking inside of that chunk. Right. And I mean,
right.
you can add on to get, things that needed to be added on with some welding processes, but it's essentially ultra precise carving. Right. And that's what all those machines do. It's ultra precise carving of metals of different characteristics.
Yeah.
And casting is where you make molds and heat the metal up to a liquid state and pour it into the mold, and it gets hard, and you pull out the piece that's at least roughly shaped. It often goes from there to a machinist to smooth up. And forging, what blacksmiths do, is take metal when it is nearly melting, and that is it's soft, and just squish it into the new shapes that often approximate the shapes the machinists want. And then they take those rough forgings, drop them into their machines, and carve them down to the precise dimensions that is specified. And so those, as I understand it, those are the three broad general categories of working metal. And then welding, of course, is sort of a cut and paste sort of a thing. But machinist is a man who makes things really fit.
Right. Yeah.
Can you talk about chime in, but then explain your family history in machining, because it sounds like you've got a family legacy here that had brought you to where you are now. Is that right?
Yeah, I got to thank both my granddad and my dad for getting me into machining and doing what it is that I do now. My granddad, he had a long-term career being a machinist. He worked at one shop here in town for many years, and then he got a job working out at the NAS Pensacola here at the machine shop. It was called NARF, which is Naval Air Rework Facility. And that's where he retired from. They did a lot of work for the USS Lexington and other things there in the Navy. But so he worked there for many years, and then my dad, whenever he was 18, which would have been around 1968, he got a job working at a machine shop, the same one that my granddad had worked at. He got a job there and started learning how to be a machinist there as well. And then in 1972, my granddad decided to build them a machine shop in my granddad's backyard, a small shop, small business, and just put my dad out to work there, which is what they did. And they made it successful and started off as a very small shop and just kept building it. And I don't remember exactly what year it was, but I want to say it was probably between 5 and 10 years after the start. My dad actually bought it from my granddad, or my granddad sold it to my dad. And, then he just kind of took it over 100%, and that was his business. And so fast forward a little bit to 1997. That was the year that I was graduating high school, and unsure of what I wanted to do, whether I wanted to go to like college somewhere or pursue some type of career. I wasn't sure. My dad talked me into coming and work for him that year that I graduated, because he was real busy at the time and he needed more help. And it's always been tough to find good machinists or good help. So he talked me into coming to work for him, and that's what I did. Started working for him in 97, and I just kind of fell in love with the trade. Even though I grew up around the shop helping him a lot, when I was a kid, I didn't really pay a lot of attention to everything what a machine shop is. I just have a lot of these memories of playing with the machines and playing with scrap metal outside and helping them go to the scrap yard. But once I actually started working there full time, and he taught me how to be a machinist, and I started realizing what a machine shop does, and I just kept enjoying it more and more. And then I started getting into the tools and learning what all these old machines are. I just started picking up on that, and it's stuck with me ever since.
Let me ask you this. What was in terms of machines, I mean, lathes, mills, shapers, drill press, what'd you fall in love with first? Which machine really reached out and captivated your imagination?
I think it's always been the lathe, the manual lathe. Yeah. And I've got a lot of memories of running our big Monarch lathe at my dad's shop. And, it's funny because, when I started working as a machinist, learning how to be a machinist when I was 17, he put me right on that big Monarch. It would swing 30 inches and it had a 12-foot bed. So we had great big work pieces in that thing. And he's teaching me how to be a machinist with a 30-inch swing Monarch lathe.
Gee whiz.
If only I could have had a camera back in those days to capture all those big jobs that we had in that machine.
I'll bet.
That's always been my favorite, though, is the lathe.
That's neat. Cy has a Monarch.
What's the these old machines, like everybody I know, which is like 3 people who are into this, only talk about the old machines. Is there like some kind of newer machine that's still manual, or is it just one or the other? You're either on the old machines like this Monarch, or new computerized. Is there any middle ground, or how does it work today? Are you using these old, manual machines for your work still?
I still have a lot of old machines in my shop. A lot of my machines are still very old. I don't have very many modern machines. I think the welding equipment is probably the most modern that I have. Mm-hmm. But my Monarch lathe that I have, my dad had 2 Monarch lathes. One was the big one. I always just call it the big one. It was a 30-inch swing. And then the one that I currently have in the shop is a 16-inch Monarch. So that was one of the lathes that Dad gave to me. So that one was built in 1942, I believe it was.
Mm-hmm. God, that's awesome.
So a lot of the old, we say back in the day, the old school American-made machines, they were all heavily casted machines. They were big, heavy duty. They were engineered to last a lifetime and run for decades, And here we are, still running some of these old machines that were built back in the 30s and the 40s and the 50s, and they're still doing the job today that they were designed to do back then.
That's amazing.
There's very few machine tools that are American made now. Most everything is sourced offshore. And I've ran quite a few of the newer lathes, which is my Victor lathe is made in Taiwan. It's a really good high quality lathe, and I've run some other ones that were made in China, and I think that those are um, not as good as the American made machines.
Mm-hmm.
Usually, the build quality is lacking. It's lacking weight. It's not as heavy as the old ones.
And that's kind of important, isn't it? I mean, vibration's a problem when you're doing precise work.
Yeah, exactly. One of the differences that I've seen just because of my experience is some of the lathes that you can buy today. There's different levels of quality that you can buy in a lathe. Okay, if you get one that's got a solid cast bed, it's usually a much more rigid machine than if you get one that's just it's just got sheet metal in between both the headstock and the tailstock. So if you can get one that's got more cast iron and more weight to it, it's usually a more dense and solid machine.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how all the old American machines were. I mean, they're just so heavily casted and heavily engineered. Those guys, it's like they over-engineered them. You can really take a lot of heavy cuts on the older heavy machines versus the new style machines that they build today.
It's interesting, but I mentioned Cy, who's my blacksmith mentor. He's become just such a good friend. He's old enough to be my dad, but in a lot of ways he seems like a brother, right?
Yeah.
And he's got a good-sized Monarch in his shop, made in 1951, I think, something like that. And, he can turn a cannon, and he can get good-sized work in there. I can't tell you exactly how big it is, but it's big. And he had a young man in there, an aspiring, a real blacksmith, but the young man was in there. Cy was helping him turn some dies, right? And the young man wanted to run it. And so he ran this Monarch, and he ran the tool holder itself into the four-jaw chuck, at speed, right? And everything just came to immediate stop.
Oh, wow.
Okay. And Cy was, and of course, Cy, just was appalled at what had just happened to his baby.
Yeah.
But they got up there and they had to tap. They had to get a hammer and a bronze dead blow on there and kind of jar that four-jaw backwards off of the bind. And that's what he said, is if it wouldn't have been an old American-made lathe that would have torn the gears out of it, it would be a piece of junk right now. And he put it back to its paces.
Oh,
and
wow.
within the tolerance that Cy needs to work for, that thing is still right where it ought to be, just because of what you were just describing.
Yeah, that's amazing to hear. And I've actually ran a lathe that was crashed like what you're saying. I wasn't around when it happened, but I know that they ran the carriage or the tool post up into the chuck, and it actually broke one of the teeth off the gears in the headstock.
Oh,
and it's such a job to have to take every single thing out of that headstock to replace one gear that they just never did it. So every time you'd run the lathe, you just hear like a little knock. Every rotation, you hear a knock.
It's good for making like camshafts where you need a little lobe.
Yeah, there you go.
Is there one type of? Well, I want to talk about YouTube in a bit because I know that occupies some amount of the type of work you do. But is there one type of machining that you really feel like you are an expert at, maybe, or do you have to be so well-rounded and make whatever the customer brings you, or do you have like some area of expertise in machining that you feel you can stand on?
Well, I feel pretty confident in my lathe and my mill skills, and I've never considered myself an expert, and that's one thing that I've always tried to portray in my videos is that I'm just here to show you what I know, and I only know what I know, and I don't know what I don't know. But
amen, brother, amen.
But I've always felt pretty confident in running the lathe and the mill both.
So Adam, that's why I felt so comfortable visiting with you in Texas, is that you weren't putting on any airs, you weren't trying to pull the wool over anybody's eyes, but when I was paying attention from the edges, and whenever anybody asked you a question, you had the answer. And so I think it's a very compelling personality characteristic, what you just said. I know what I know, and I don't know what I don't know, and I wish I knew more, and I will by the time I die. I mean, that's a healthy way to live, right?
Yeah. I as I said, I always just try to show what I know when I'm showing these projects and these repairs. And quite honestly, I've actually picked up on a lot of tips and tricks just from the community out there
Yeah.
by not only reading comments, but emails, and then watching other guys on their YouTube videos, because I've only been subjected to so much of this, some of this work, and I haven't seen it all. There's a lot of other stuff out there, and there's a lot of great machinists out there that nobody knows about, but I'm just one guy that decided to film what it is I do and show that on YouTube.
Yeah. When I was prepping for this, I looked, and did you know you've had over 128 million views on your videos? I think you're almost up to 1,000 videos total. And
I feel kind of embarrassed because I haven't looked at those stats in a while.
Yeah, it's an enormous number. So you're being kind of modest. You don't know everything, and that's of course true. But man, you're definitely doing something in these videos. So what do you attribute that to, or what is it that you think makes is making your videos like really work for people? And I don't know. I guess to what do you attribute that? I know you've been doing it for a long time, so maybe there's just the fact that you've been working hard at it. But how do you think about that?
Well, I've definitely always tried to improve my quality a little bit over the years. I started in 2013 putting the videos out on YouTube, but I really just kind of go off the comments and the hearsay and what I've had probably hundreds of conversations with viewers. Just like Go to Landfest is a great example. A lot of people come and they talk to you. And they tell you in person what it is that they like about your videos. And a lot of people have sort of the same thing to say. They like the way that I deliver the material. They like the way that I talk about it. And just the way that I present the material in an educational form seems to be a pretty big hit. And I guess a lot of people just like my voice, because I've had a lot of people say that they like listening to my voice.
You got a great voice. You do, man. Yeah. No, you really do. Your voice is the same scale that you are. I mean, you're a big guy. When I walk up to you, and I'm not a shrimp, but I walk up to talk to you and I think, this is a full-size guy. I mean, the crane is optional in his shop, okay? And your voice matches that. And so that's part of, I think, of what's coming through the screen.
I just try to have a nice, solid, and easy to understand delivery of what it is I do. And I try to share each and every part of the repair, so if I have a part that I'm going to be repairing in the shop, I try to explain it each step of the way so that the people that are watching understand what it is I'm doing. Because there's a lot of videos where people are just showing it for entertainment. They just to see something being made, and that's fine. I always had this urge that whenever I started recording something, that I needed to explain it, what it is I'm doing. And I think I guess I have just the right combination of all those things that bring people in, and they continue to watch the videos, and they enjoy them because of that.
Yeah, I've been really surprised or just impressed. The machinist community on YouTube seems especially, I don't know, just neat. Both the other creators, and there's a lot of, and they're all great, but the audience also, like you said, it's a bunch of really smart people watching it, and it has seemed to me different than some of the other even workbench channels where there's people watching for other reasons. But it really felt like in the machining videos that it's an especially kind of unique collection of people. Does it seem like that to you?
I've always felt that way, and a lot of the other contributors and viewers have felt that way too. That the community around the machinist videos and the machinist contributors seem to be a little bit more tightly knit group of folks, and not as much negativity as you would find maybe, let's just say, the automotive world.
Yeah,
that's a lot bigger than machining. There's a lot of critics out there, and you'll get a lot of negativity in videos. But there's always been a great community out there. People that want to be involved, people that want to watch all the videos. Now, I'm not talking about just mine, but all the other creators. They like watching all of them and chiming in and leaving a comment if there's something that they think that they can say that help contribute to the project. They will do that. They like feeling like they're involved in the projects and the work that's going on.
So I don't know if you've seen on our Spec House series, the plumbing episodes feature Phil the plumber, Phil Rokas, good friend.
I have not seen that. Just
Okay.
So you know.
Well, let me just tell you this. He has seen you because he spent a long time machining, because he is like most machinists like yourself. He's got a big brain. He can think. And so I've talked to Phil. I said, so tell me about this Abom guy. Oh yeah, he's the real deal. And Phil is the real deal. He's done big work. He's done small work. He's machined. I mean, he's made, like machinists do. He makes amazing things. And he just happens to have slid into plumbing as a career and a niche. But I can just tell you that if the rest of the machinist world are like you and Phil and Cy and his friends that I've met that are machinists, it is a remarkably positive and frankly sort of a relatively high IQ bunch, and that can't help but be a good community.
Yeah, it's a great community to be a part of, and I that's one reason why I love the privilege of being able to collaborate with other folks out there, not just machinists, lots of other people out there. But whenever I can, sort of connect with someone else out there that's doing the same type of work, machining, mm-hmm. but maybe a different aspect of it, mm-hmm. it's great being able to collaborate with people and come together, and everybody kind of uses their skill set to help each other out.
I'm going to ask you kind of a multi-part question. First of all, can you kind of talk about and explain the whole thousandths of an inch mindset and concept in a way that makes sense for a non-machinist? And number two, machinists are so precise. I mean, you have to be. And I'm wondering if that translates to other parts of your life, being that meticulous, or if it's just kind of when you're in the shop.
I'm sure if Abby was in here, she would tell you absolutely yes. I try to make sure everything is nice and straight, parallel, square. I got this term from my friend Tom Lipton years ago. He said, "Square to the world," just square to the world. So every time, if I'm trying to park a trailer, it's got to be square. It can't be at an angle, crooked. You know what I mean? If I'm lining up something outside, a piece of furniture or whatever, I want to try to make things exact as I can. And so I think that kind of carries over because Abby's always joking with me about that. I know you got to make it square to the world.
Yeah. And imagine the military machinists. They must just be totally uptight because they got the machinist layer and then like a military training layer. I can't imagine like what their made beds look like.
Yeah.
So talk to us about thousandths of an inch, because hopefully you're not thinking that when you're parking your trailer, but what's that all about?
No. Well, what do you
I mean, I hear like guys like my dad and Phil, like, oh, it's within 2 or 3 thousandths. And I'm thinking, you don't have eagle eyes. What are you talking about? But I know that they all speak this way, so there's something there. So I can sometimes see like an 1/8 of an inch, and that's a chunk. But will you just a thousandth of an inch? Is like we're going from this imperial, by 12s measurement, all of a sudden to thousands. And I don't know, just maybe help. Both of you can maybe help me out with this, but it just seems kind of unnecessary.
I certainly don't feel qualified to try to explain it very well, but I'll try to do my best here. One way that I've always tried to teach myself to think, and this is going way back, is to take 1 inch, right? You can visualize what 1 inch is because you read a tape measure. Break that inch into 1,000 equal parts. Okay, that's what thousandths of an inch is. So like you were just saying, 1/8 of an inch, that would be 125 thousandths, because of the fractional equivalent.
Right.
But so it's just taking an inch and breaking it into 1,000 equal places.
So how could you think about 5 thousandths of an inch? That seems microscopic, but people can feel and talk about that as if it's a tangible thing they can put their hands on.
Yeah, just grab one of your hairs.
You can feel it, right? I mean, you can run your finger over a lip on a machine tool, and you can feel a 5/1000ths lip.
Oh yeah, that's
can feel
big
that bump.
Too.
That's a big, ugly deviation. Yeah.
So I think. Go ahead.
I think Phil told me that in a Bible, a sheet of paper in a Bible's like 3/1000ths or something like that. And you were
Okay.
talking about a human hair is about 5/1000ths. Is that what we were talking about there?
I think a hair is around 3 or 4 thousandths,
3 or 4 thousandths, yeah.
I've
And
actually
so,
never measured one.
so there are some hip shot sort of ways to use common items as a way to understand these distances. Think of a set of feeler gauges. You can spread out a set of feeler gauges and see right down, 10 thousandths, 20 thousandths, 15 thousandths, 12 thousandths, and you can feel that. And it's so a 16th of an inch in carpenter's work to a 16th of an inch is round numbers, 60 thousandths,
Okay.
actually 62.5 thousandths, right?
Yeah.
And
Okay.
so
Now
that
once
means
you're at a 16th of an inch, now you just can work. If you convert to the thousandths,
that's the carpenter in me. When we start talking about that, I'm visualizing, okay, so a 30-second, I can kind of read a 30-second on a tape measure, right? And so we know that that's about 30 thousandths, round carpenter numbers, And so that's kind of how to visualize that for a carpenter anyway.
Right.
Oh, that's neat.
Yeah.
So about the trade itself, it's changed a lot over even your lifetime, I would guess, with these, I'll say electronic, but you know what I mean, the non-manual machines.
CNC.
So let's speak to a listener who might be interested in being in, the industry at this point. What is that like for those fellows? I guess there's trade schools, or does it make sense for them to learn manual machines like what you are an expert on, or do you advise kids just like get trained on the newest cutting edge tool, or what's it like for workers in the industry these days, and especially younger fellows who might have an interest in this as a career?
Well, I encourage anybody that has the opportunity to learn both sides of the machining trade. If you can learn manual and CNC, definitely do that. Now, the way the future is going is that I would encourage anybody to definitely get in there and learn CNC, because all these guys that are running these CNC machines, I feel like they're miles ahead of me. Okay, being able to do CAD and CAM and program these machines and make these unbelievable parts in a fraction of the time of what you can on a mill or a lathe. That's unbelievable. But I think there's also a need there for guys to understand the basics and learn how to set a workpiece up in a lathe or a manual mill. Set it in the vise. How to not just rely on a CNC machine and what they hear and what they're visualizing, but being able to run manual machines and these hand cranks and feel and listen to the machine and what it's doing. I think once they do that and they have some experience running a manual machine, they have a little better understanding of what's going on with that cutter. Sometimes you might get a chatter, or a tool is breaking, or you're feeling the machine jump around because something's wrong. I think having that hands-on experience actually will help them in their career, even if they're just doing it to gain some of that experience with the manual stuff.
So I would say that would be a vitally important thing if there were time for young engineers to have that experience, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
When you're designing things, I mean, like every automotive engineer, he deserves to have to work in a production automotive shop for a while, right?
Yeah.
And it would be the same with the people that are designing, mechanical components. If they could actually run a manual machine for a while, they would have a better grasp.
I've heard that a lot. There's a lot of engineers that are designing components and they have no idea what it takes to machine it. So they're just designing something and they're putting all these crazy features in there that just adds to the complexity of how you're actually going to machine that. So, I've heard that a lot, is that, man, they should have been out there in a machine shop and just have the basic principles and understanding of what it takes to manufacture something on a machine. And then that will help them in their design, in their engineering as well.
Hey, maybe talk us through what you said. You started putting videos up in 2013. What was your mindset when you started doing that? I know you didn't probably have this in mind, but what was going through your head? And then talk about what your work is like now. Because I know for us and for my dad in particular, making video content has changed the nature of the job, of the work completely. It's the same work, but it's kind of for a totally different reason. And I'm wondering, and I guess people may not realize how it seems like making a video is just like a little thing, but it takes over like the whole day kind of if you're going to film it. And So anyways,
Yeah.
talk about what that's like, because I doubt that's what you had in mind when you started posting videos.
Yeah, when I started making videos, it was just it was something fun and new to try. And at that particular time, for I don't know, a couple years or so before that, I was pretty active on the practicalmachinist.com website. So I was contributing there, and that was back when a lot of people were just sharing pictures on the forums of what it was they were doing, their jobs and their projects and restorations. So I was on there pretty active, sharing a lot of the jobs that I did, machining jobs, real world jobs where I'd be on the lathe and I'd take a few pictures of a shaft that I was building for a gearbox and share it on there. And so at that time's when I think cameras were starting to be a little bit more affordable for everybody. A lot of people were using their cell phones, but they had those GoPro cameras coming out. And so I decided to get a GoPro camera, and instead of just taking a picture, I wanted to try to show video of the machine work. And so it took me a little while. It was a good 6 months that I finally figured out how to take a video and edit it and put it up on YouTube. So what I wanted to do was be able to show a video of some of this machine work. And at the time that I started doing this, I didn't realize that this entire YouTube world and community was out there that wanted to watch this stuff. I was making a couple videos and I'd shared the link over on Practical Machinist, thinking that, well, this is my audience. It's these forums that are going to be watching these videos. And so the guys from the forums quickly started subscribing to me. And then all of a sudden, people from all walks of life in every country in the world started subscribing to me and watching these videos. Because apparently at the time, there was a lot of guys that started doing this kind of at the same time I did. It was just kind of coincidentally that everybody started doing it. But there wasn't a whole lot of machining content out there at the time that I started doing that. And so I started uploading a few videos, and I started getting all these subscribers and all these comments coming through about how awesome everybody thought this stuff was. So I just continued to do it. I started to enjoy it more and more. So it became part of me, part of the job. It was like, okay, I got this job, but I want to share what it is I'm going to do, whether it be making a new part or we're going to repair a part. So I'd have the camera. I'd made me up a little indicator holder to hold my GoPro so I could just mount it anywhere in the shop on a mag base. And I started recording everything, and it just kept snowballing into what it's grown into now.
So let me just say this is that I'm going to assume that it was for you like it was for me. It was like jumping into a bathtub of cold water to realize how filming something compromises your ability to actually produce the work. Yeah. Having to think about the filming and think about the work, these two things are in conflict with each other, sort of. The film complicates the work, and if you miss the work, you've complicated the video you just took, and so it really, really changed that. Where was I going with that observation? I guess I was just going with, how have you dealt with the fact that the enjoyment? Oh, I know what I was going to say. What I was going to say was, I can't believe, I'm just so impressed by the idea of having to film and edit and upload and do all the work yourself that Nate does in our partnership. Because Nate works like a dog pretty much all the time. And at different times, I'm working pretty much all the time, although lately I've had less pressure because of the point that the house is at. So this has to have been, at least for a while, a really overwhelming workload for you, handling both ends of this.
Yeah, it's always been just me. The entire, ever since I started, I've always filmed and edited and uploaded every one of my videos. So it's
so cool.
One man band when it comes to that. Huh. And sometimes I do kind of think back, because there's been plenty of weeks where I would upload multiple videos in 1 week. And I was working 2 full-time jobs. I had my daytime job where I was filming a lot of this work, and then I would come home to my shop, which is where I'm at full-time now, and I would have projects going on out there. So I would have videos from both my day job and my personal shop that I would be uploading. And my days always had long days. I'd wake up, 6 o'clock. That's when my day started, and my it usually didn't end until 10 or 11 o'clock at night because
Mm-hmm.
I'd go to bed, but I would be up until then editing videos to put up that week.
Yep.
And
Wow.
and the only thing that's really kind of been a little bit more relaxed about that schedule now is the fact that I don't have a separate full-time job to go to anymore. Now I just work for myself. So now I can dedicate more time to being in my shop, doing what it is that I want to do, and
Mm-hmm.
taking my time on these projects. I don't like to rush through jobs anymore.
Yep.
I like to be able to take my time and film them and share them on YouTube. So
Mm-hmm.
that's a big part of what it is I do in my shop now.
So I've recognized that improvement too, that it has taken the time pressure off of what used to always be time driven. You know,
Yes.
that the motive to capture it on film has forced us, me as the guy producing the work anyway, because Nate still has the burden of producing the videos, but for me, the time budget that every other job has always had all my life has been reduced, and that's been a plus, right?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. I'm still taking in jobs from individuals and
Mm-hmm.
some from companies. I do a little work here and there. I'm a lot more selective now on
Mm-hmm.
what it is that I take in because I get a lot of requests. I have a lot of people that want me to do some work, but it's just me. I can only
Mm-hmm.
do so much, and I don't like that pressure of just
Yep.
having this backlog of all these projects and jobs that everybody's wanting to do. Because and it's good to have that, especially if you're in a business and you're looking for that work. But part of the YouTube is that I want to have time for myself and my own projects and my own machinery repairs and restorations as well. So I don't want it to be just 100% jobs that's coming through the door. I want to
Mm-hmm.
have some time for myself,
Yep.
and I can still go out there, still work on something, still film it, edit it for a video to share with everybody, and it keeps me busy.
Yep.
Do you have any exciting kind of jobs in the pipeline that you're really excited to film and make videos about, or maybe even just personal project or restorations that are coming up?
Well, the big job that I'm working on currently right now is been collaborating with Keith Rucker over at
Oh yeah,
Vintage Machinery.
yeah.
He took in a what's called a stoker engine, and he volunteered to restore the stoker engine. And my apologies, I cannot remember what organization that the stoker engine is for. I know it goes up to Tennessee, one of the rail yards there.
Wow.
But the big engine case needs some machine work inside of it, and he actually went in there. Him and my buddy Lance went in there and did a little bit of welding in this machined area that was it was kind of just wore out from water sitting in it, over the years. And so I've got to get in there and actually machine these two channels out that's been welded up. So
Mm-hmm.
that's currently what I've been working on, but I've had to machine a big fixture plate to be able to hold this engine case in my shaper because the engine itself was too big to fit on the table. So I had to take a big piece of steel and machine it so that it would bolt onto the table, and then the engine case will sit on that table there. So
Wow.
that's what's going on currently right now, what I've been working on.
That's a great project. So you've mentioned twice now your shaper, and when I first started into blacksmithing now about 12 years ago, my power hammer showed up without the dies, and so a mutual friend of Cy and mine has several shapers. He's got a lot of old machine tools, and so he machined these dies out of some 4350, I think. And so I stood there for hours watching that shaper shave
Oh,
away and
really?
scatter all. Oh man, it's just so cool. It's such a basic and intuitive. Well, I don't know if it's intuitive, but it's an elemental. It was like one of the first machine tools, right? I mean,
Yeah, it's a very early design. Yep.
yeah, yeah,
And
and
for those,
it's primitive, right? But boy, it does
it
the
is.
work.
Yeah, it's an obsolete machine, especially
Yeah,
in today's day. But for me, because I just love these old machines, and that's
yeah,
what a lot of us you guys like me captivate us is these old machines.
yeah.
And the shaper was something that I never had the privilege of running in my dad's shop. He had one, but it was never hooked up. At that point, he had disconnected it, pushed it to the back corner, never used it anymore. and we ended up scrapping it because we couldn't even sell the thing.
Yeah.
And so I always had wanted to run a shaper, and the more and more I got involved with these older machines, I just kept telling myself, I'm like, I really want a shaper.
Yeah.
And so I lucked out. I found a great shaper, a big G&E 32-inch stroke,
That's
weighs
a big
over
one.
1,000 pounds.
Yeah.
And I love running that machine. And just you can remove a lot of material with those machines.
Yeah. So a shaper that size has got a big vise on it. I've got a vise off a shaper on my drill press, and it's just a beautiful, solid. Yeah, I mean, it's just such a great vise, and I can imagine how big the one is on your shaper.
Yeah, the jaw width on it is, I believe it's 15 inches wide.
That's big.
Yeah.
So Nate, just so you'll know, the shaper, it has an intermittent cut. That is, it begins its swing in the air, and then it suddenly encounters the edge of the metal and just peels off a shaving as it just drives right across the top of the piece. And so that vise has to stand there and take it and not shiver and not shake and not move. It's just amazing.
Yeah, and I'd love to meet the psychopath who invented that thing.
He would have been a Civil War guy, okay?
Yeah, these people are insane. Like, I got an idea.
It's still a great machine. You know, I get a lot of people that joke with me about, you know, you can't make anything, or you can make anything on a shaper except for money. But I've actually, I don't flaunt it, but I've proven that wrong because I've done quite a few jobs on there. And while sometimes, it may be something that is much more suited for a different machine, such as a milling machine. A lot of times I like to do things on the shaper for the pure fun and enjoyment of it, and share it with my audience. But there's been a few jobs that I've brought in that I've tried to share that actually my type of shaper, I've got a universal table, which actually it pivots and rotates. So I can bolt a part down on there and get the table indicated, you know, the surface that I'm trying to cut, get it nice and parallel with the stroke of the ram, and easily cut something versus trying to set something up in a milling machine table and get it trammed in nice and level. So there's plenty of times that shaper comes in as a very handy machine to do something.
So we just uploaded a video about Ken Jordan, and the video is the friend that revolutionized my life. You would enjoy it. You ought to see the craftsmanship he's done. But I helped him move the neatest little shaper into his shop. You ought to look at that, and then we'll talk on the phone. It's like in mint showroom floor condition. It's not very big, but it's such a beautiful little thing. And
is it like is it an Atlas or a South Bend?
It was green. It was green.
It's
with
a light
white
green,
and red, yellow logo on it.
You check out the video, man. In fact, Nate may throw a little B-roll of that up into this video, perhaps, because it's just. And I haul it in there on my tilt trailer, and we tilted the trailer up and put some pipes under it and rolled it off, and it just slipped into his shop like it was born there. You know, it's a beautiful little thing.
Yeah.
Do you feel like you've kind of, I wouldn't say mastered, but you kind of learned the shaper with your big one that you got, and do you feel like you've really got a handle on it? Because I'm guessing, did you have somebody come show you the ropes on it, or is it kind of intuitive, and since you know all the other machines?
Yeah, already? I think it was an intuitive thing. You kind of understand what you have to do. But I was self-taught on the shaper, you know, so I never had anybody like Dad show me how to run a shaper. And the first time you start running a shaper, you're going to make some mistakes, and you're going to learn what not to do again, because you got to be careful that you don't crash it.
You bet.
You got this, you got this big ram that's just going back and forth. And so, you know, if you got a workpiece sticking up here in the way, you don't have it positioned right, this ram's going to come out and just hit it and crash, you know? So
and something's going to break.
Yeah.
Something will certainly break when that happens, man.
Yeah. And it's usually not the inside of the machine. It's something else. You know, you're going to screw something else up.
There's going to be parts flying around on your shop floor, and it'll be bad. Yeah.
So,
wow, that's really cool. Well, you mentioned a few minutes ago that you're doing all this work, and you like to find time to do your own machining, but you're making it sound like this is there anything you do besides machining and making videos? Do you have any other hobbies that you're filling the extra 30 minutes of the clock in with, or is this just all you need is your shop?
Well, there's one other aspect of what it is I like to do too, and a lot of my audience knows this. I love to barbecue. I love to smoke and barbecue, and so typically if I'm not in my shop working, I'm usually out on my patio, you know, with my grills or my smokers, busy out there cooking some dinner. That's
Man,
the
that
other thing
counts.
that I really, really enjoy.
Man, that's sweet. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Hey,
So
here's an off-topic question about smokers, and this is definitely not any kind of ad, but do you use a Traeger out of curiosity, a smoker grill? You know
No,
those ones?
I don't
Okay.
have any. I don't have any of those types of grills and smokers. The
Okay.
electric style.
Well, it's like a wood
pellet
pellet. It's
style.
like a wood pellet one.
Yeah,
But
I don't
somebody
have
was
any of
telling
the
me that,
pellet
like,
style.
yeah, okay. Well, we'll have to learn more about it. But someone was like explaining it in a way I was a little skeptical about, that it could do everything, but nothing can
It's
do everything.
extremely popular in this day and age. I
Yeah.
tell you that because it's one of those types of grills that they developed. It's kind of like a no brainer, and you can
Yeah.
set it, forget it. So you put your food in there, your meat, whatever it is you're cooking, and you have a dial that you set the temperature that you want the thing to run at. It's like an oven. So it runs
Wow.
at that temperature. I think you have another setting where you can set how much smoke you want to put into the food.
Wow.
It just runs itself, and you come back when it's done.
So here's what we're talking about, boys, is a CNC barbecue, right?
Yes.
And we don't have time for a CNC barbecue. We are manual barbecuers, right?
Okay.
I mean, that's what you do. You're a manual barbecue guy and a manual machinist.
Yeah, I have a lot of people that there's a lot of discussion out there like that, and Scott, you'll understand this. I'm getting into stick burning, which I have an offset smoker now. I'm using just wood.
Oh yeah.
So there's a bit of art and craftsmanship that goes into this that you have to learn and master also, because there's a
species
lot
and
of
moisture and stuff. Yeah.
fire management. Fire management, heat management, smoke management, and that's part of what it is that I love to learn about right now. And I read books about it. I go out there every week. I'm out there multiple times a day out there, not just with the big smoker, but with my grills as well.
That's
so
awesome.
you can kind of tell I have a little passion for it.
Yes, you do.
Hey, are you making any videos about it yet?
Oh yeah, I've made a lot of videos. It's all of my cooking videos goes over on my second channel, which is Abom Adventures.
Okay.
So anything that's travel related or cooking related goes on to that second channel. So if anybody's interested, they go check it out. I'm always thinking up of another cooking video that I want to share.
Oh, that's cool. Well, so the audience knows, and you get it, but they probably figured out that I don't actually watch near as much YouTube as I used to. I don't really keep up on all your videos. You haven't either. It's kind of like unfortunate byproduct of like making a lot of content. Yeah. Unfortunately,
there's a lot of good stuff to watch out there, and a lot of us creators really just don't have a lot of time to watch everybody's videos.
It's a classic thing. If you take what you love and turn it into a job, you have to find something else to love, right? I mean, there's no time. There is no time. So I want to steer this back around for a second and show the people who are watching this little beauty. Okay, see that? Okay, now I don't know if we're going to be able to focus on this, but I mean, this looks solid, right? I mean, if you were looking at this, if you were holding this and looking at this vice handle, you would think, well, that's one piece. It is seamless, right?
Right.
Except watch this. It actually threads apart. Can you see how that goes away? That's an invisible line, Adam. I don't know how you did that. That's a net zero fit.
Now be honest and tell them what you were doing at like 5:30 this morning.
Okay,
and actually tell the real story here.
Okay, man, honesty is an overrated virtue. Okay, I'm not sure. Here's what happened. I lost this darn thing, Adam. It disappeared into my shop for like a year. We were going to restore that vise a year ago, and I said, well, let me grab the handle, and it was gone. So I woke up at 4:00 this morning, and at 4:30 I was out of bed and got dressed, went out to the shop and started tearing the world apart. And it wasn't found until my wife came out. Kelly came out and helped me tear the world apart. She said, and so what do I get for finding something like this? And she holds up this thing wrapped in the red rag that I wrapped it in to protect it. So this was found today. But I want to go back to bragging about this. And we were talking about feeling 2 or 3 thousandths. There is not a 2 or 3 thousandths deviation in this, except for the inclusion that you had to leave because the rough forging I provided you was a little too small right here. Yep. So there's just a little bit of the scale of the forging scale right there, which I love. I love that, It
gives a little character.
It does. And so that was forged out of a coil spring, which was hopefully 5160. And I tried to anneal it Was this thing hard or soft when you tangled with it? When you
I
got
don't
through the scale, do you remember?
I don't remember it being. It wasn't hard to the point where I could not machine it. I was
Okay.
able to machine it like a normal steel. So
Okay.
I would imagine that it's got a lot of strength to it, but it's
Yeah.
not hardened steel.
Right. Okay. And I'm not going to harden it. I mean, it doesn't have to be hard in that vise, right? I thought about bringing it up to critical and quenching it, and I thought, no, I'm not going to mess that thing up.
No, I mean, as long as you use that vise in the future the way it was designed to use, just use a hand to tighten something up.
Don't put
You
a
should
sweet
be
on
fine.
it.
The only
Yeah.
reason vice handles ever been is because people put cheater pipes on them or they hit them
Yeah.
with hammers.
Yeah. Yep.
I love
So
that.
a couple other questions. I don't know if we talked about this. I thought about drilling that, maybe putting a roll pin or a rivet or something in there to lock that on, but I just don't want to do that. I think I'm just going to put a little Loctite on there and just run it down and just use it, right?
There you go. Just put some Loctite on it and just ring it together as tight as you can, and it should be fine. It should never come apart.
It's really beautiful.
Well, for the people listening while they're driving, Adam made us a handle for a vise a couple years ago that we're going to restore, and we now have all of the parts and pieces back in our possession. So
I'm leaving it in the office. I'm leaving it in the office until we film that thing.
There you go.
So how often do you get to machine?
Your wife a steak dinner, by the way.
Yes, I do. Yeah. So how often do you machine off of a rough forging like that?
It's pretty rare that I have to machine anything like that. I've machined a lot of castings,
I see.
But that's cast iron. But
right,
forgings, I really can't even think of machining a forging before. That could have been my first time.
Okay. Did you have to go out and buy that quarter round cutter, or did you happen to have that in stock? It was it quarter round the cutter that machined that right there?
Oh yeah, corner rounding end mill. That was something I already had in my shop.
Oh, good. I thought, I hope he didn't have to go buy that just for that vise handle.
No, thankfully, because of Dad and Granddad, I had a pretty well stocked machine shop with cutters. So
because that cutter would cost how much? That cutter would cost $100. What would that cost?
Probably easy $100. Yeah, $150.
Yeah, it was a beautiful tool. Did a nice job.
Well, to kind of wrap it up, Adam, machining seems like the type of craft or trade that is really difficult to just ease into, because you get these huge machines. So for someone who's interested or kind of wants to, how does somebody dip their toe into the water or practice or experiment? Maybe someone who's retired with this, are there places or ways to kind of get involved, or you pretty much just have to buy a machine and dive in? And if so, what machine? So can you talk about that a little bit? How would somebody get involved with this if they wanted to?
Well, because of the audience that I have, I've learned that so many people have actually been interested in machining so much now that they would go out and they would acquire their own machine. So they would find a used lathe and a used mill. And it doesn't have to be big, giant, heavy machines either. Some people start off with like a little benchtop lathe, benchtop mill, and start learning that way. Not only the machines, there's a lot of tools that are involved as well. That's why if you look around my shop, you see toolboxes everywhere. Yep. So you got to have some kind of basic measuring tools, such as rulers, calipers, micrometers, and a couple dial indicators so that you can get things dialed into the machine. But if people are interested in it, they can certainly do that. They can buy them a couple pieces of machinery to put in their garage or their home shop and start that way.
And they don't cost much. Those little bench tops don't cost a lot of money, right?
No, I mean you can find little benchtop mills used for probably around $500, and up. And of course, you can buy that stuff new from places like Grizzly now. If you want some kind of new machine, there's different levels of quality out there as well. And generally, what people find is that when they start out with one of those kind of machines, they very quickly want to graduate up to the next size machine because of their limited capacity and being able to, make a big heavy chip on them. So people can do that. But if there's anybody out there that's interested in the trades, I would definitely encourage them to check with their local technical schools, technical colleges, because there's usually manufacturing courses out there that they can take. Just like right here in town, we have the college here. And they have a manufacturing course there that's it's all CNC, there's no manual machines in there, but they actually teach you how to do CAD and CAM and make parts. They even have a wood shop. They teach them woodworking in there as well, which is pretty cool. There's a lot of schools that still offer that, and people can go and get the basic training and knowledge that they need there at these schools, and then they can get their foot into the door at a machine shop, and you got to work the ranks.
There's a guy on Craigslist in our area who refreshes an ad that's basically, I have a machine shop in my garage, and if anybody wants to come hang out, let me know.
Yeah.
And it made me instantly think about I thought when I saw his ad about your audience and the machinist audience, how for some reason, in general, these types of fellas are friendly and like, I don't know, sharing with their information and their tools. And Dad, you have a collection of machinists around here who are the same thing. It's just all this expertise. Probably somebody has the machine and would love to kind of show it to you. So maybe the answer is if you really want to get involved, it probably wouldn't be too hard to find, people, and just if you start looking, you'll find people.
Yeah, that you brought that up. It's pretty easy to connect, and I never even thought about that. Somebody on Craigslist trying to find other people, but the crowd for machining and metalworking is generally kind of small. It's not something that you hear a lot in random conversations.
Right?
Like,
it's not like woodworking where everybody does it.
Right. Yeah. So I think these people that are interested in this, they're definitely trying to find other like-minded individuals that they can kind of share their passions with. That's a pretty interesting way.
So what I would do if I was moving into a new town and I would wanting to get established, I would start asking around who sells machine tools, who sells lathes, who sells old mills, and somebody around there is kind of dealing that. It might be in the next town or 2 or 3 towns over, but you could find. Around here, it's an outfit called HPS, and they've got 2 or 3 warehouses full of old tools that they buy at auction and resell. And as soon as you find them, you're going to find the crowd of guys that are always going through there all week, picking up their tooling and stuff that they need, and you're going to be connected with the guys that are doing that. If you can find whoever's selling the tools, you'll find where the guys go to buy the tools, and then you're connected.
Yeah. Absolutely.
That's really great. Well, Adam, can't thank you enough for coming on our show, and we will put links to your channel, to your second channel, in the description of this video, and our audience will be hearing more about you now that we have our Vice handle back in hand, and we can
kind
of finish what we started here, because that is really the cherry on top of what will be, it'll be a great little restoration project for our channel and for our shop itself. So
I was going to ask you, is that in the works this winter? Is you going to do that restoration on the Vice?
Yeah, we're all out of excuses. So
yeah, for sure.
Are you guys are you at a stopping point on the house build?
No. Where we are at is at a point where we can slow down. We've got subcontractors in there. We're just about ready to call for most of the mechanical inspections. I was over there this morning setting up some sidewalk forms, the outside flat work and hardscaping's going on. And so at this point, I don't know, Nate and I haven't really talked about it, but I'm thinking we're going to be approaching substantial completion by May, right?
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah, maybe June. We're in no hurry. It's the first job in my life that does not have a time crunch, and I'm just enjoying that.
It feels great, doesn't it?
It feels great, and it makes it easier to collect the good video and gives Nate a little more slack on what we sequence in the queue of videos that's going out. And so it does feel great. Yeah.
Well, something has to give, like with the job, like you can't do a great job and make great videos and have it done by Christmas. Like something has to give. And so for us, we're just fortunate that we can let the timing push. And so, that would be great. And it's very likely it'll be done this spring, but if it's after that, that's okay too. And frankly, like with this Vice, I don't know. I would kind of rather film a Vice restoration than the house at the moment.
It'll give you a break.
Yeah, I'm kind of tired of filming the house at the moment, and so a little Vice restoration, I would get more. I would. It will be. It'll be nice to do that and take a little break and just.
So check this, Adam. You're one of the few guys on the planet that can appreciate this. So last summer, when we started with the foundation on the house and then framed it, in Oregon, the rains start like in October usually. And so we had a small crew, and Nate got pushed into the miserable position of having to film all day. He ended up with like 7 hard drives full of footage that then once the crunch was over and we had the roof on and the rains came and we could stop, there was no time for him to even do any editing on 7 hard drives worth of footage. Wow. He then had to get in front of his computer at Thanksgiving, a year ago Thanksgiving. He had to go back and try to revisit what had happened 6 months ago and make videos out of something that was long buried and go through all that mountain of footage to get it. It was hard.
I get it. I understand it. I have that myself, maybe not on that level, but when I film a long project and I'm out there every day filming, and I come in here and I download them into my computer there, I have to go back and rewatch all that stuff that I did. And that's, I understand it. That's where a lot of the time comes in. So you do the job, you film it, and then you have to watch the job again and then try to put it together, and edit out all that extra stuff and try to keep the video in a certain amount of time that your viewers are going to be interested in watching it.
Yeah, that's it.
I was going to ask you guys a question too. So you got the spec house that you're building. Do you have anything on the horizon after that? Do you have another house that you might do, or do you have any other kind of big project in mind, or maybe you don't want to say right now?
Well, we have a couple things, but no house on the horizon. The house was almost impossibly hard for all of us for a lot of reasons.
Okay.
But we have a lot of the other type of content that's part of my life, right? So I don't know, you've probably not seen on the channel. My dad had a 1942 D2 Caterpillar crawler. Okay. It's an old campaigner, and it's in really great shape, but it's just the crawler, no blade, no canopy, no winch. And around here in the Pacific Northwest, you've got to have a blade, a canopy, and a winch to do any logging, or you get killed and you can't get the logs and you can't push. So I've scrounged around and I found Caterpillar factory blade, winch, and canopy that I'm going to be installing on that 1942 D2 and turn it into a baby logger. Okay, so that'll take a while. We have tool restorations and reviews, and I'm going to start a tree house. We've got a great big weeping willow tree here, and I have grandkids that would just really like a tree house. So we're going to do some of that. And then there's just all the blacksmithing stuff that's been getting pushed back that we need to jump on, all those things that will come back to life. So we'll have a shift in the content for a while and then see if something else in construction presents itself.
I want to do some videos I've got some ideas like factory type tours.
Yes.
I mean, not factory, but bigger type of industrial shop, like a big machine shop, frankly. Like I would love to drag a camera and my dad through one of those and get a look at something like that and make some content showing different types of job sites and factories. And there's I've said this several times, but there's a boat factory here. They make fishing boats, and there's all kinds of stuff like that. In fact, I watched a video a couple nights ago about the factory where Tabasco was made, and that's a totally different thing. But it was so fun to watch that, and it made me look forward to like someday maybe trying to make some content like that. Obviously it'd be closer to the type of work that my dad does. So whether it's a
wood products, we have lots of wood products manufacturing around here, and
something like that. So I don't know. I don't think we'll do another house, but we'll try some other type of new either video project or I don't know what. We'll keep doing something.
And really, I've got a lot to continue to learn about blacksmithing, and there's a lot of blacksmithing projects that I've been wanting to do for a long, long time. And so there's sort of an unlimited number of things you can do when you've got a few blacksmith tools. I probably am going to add a small milling machine, because there are things that I could do with a milling machine and Damascus steel that would be really handy. And so we'll see about all that.
I had an idea on a blacksmith forging project, not something that I necessarily am going to do for myself, but like I bought just a cheap, like a log handler for handling firewood.
Yeah.
It's just big. It's like tongs, but they're like 3 or 4 foot long, and they're super cheap, because they're made over in China out of, thin tube steel. I think something like that would be really cool to
Yep.
see made. These
Yep.
big tongs that you grab hot pieces of wood with.
Oh, I see. Yeah. As part of a fireplace tool set or something.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I just think something like that would be pretty cool as a project for anybody out there, because I was like, man, this thing is so cheap. It's like, I know a blacksmith could make one of these things. It'd probably weigh 10 times as much as it weighs, but it would be really cool.
You're big enough to handle it, man. You can do it.
Oh yeah. Well, it sounds like y'all have a lot of great ideas and a lot of good stuff in store for your channel there as well. A lot of good projects. It sounds really interesting. And I like the factory tour idea myself, and I don't know if y'all ever caught any of them. I've got a couple out there on my channel where I did some factory tours.
Yeah.
Gerstner was one that I really enjoyed. I got to go up there and meet and visit with all the guys at the Gerstner that build the wooden tool chest.
Oh, I'd love to watch that. I'll go find that. That sounds great.
That was amazing, seeing their process in making these wooden tool chests that began back in the early 1900s.
Wow,
that's neat.
Another example. Do you remember that guy we met in Arizona, Dad? His dad or his grandpa built a machine that makes wooden concrete stakes. And
yes, wooden stakes.
This really neat little family business. They make wooden concrete stakes, and they built the machine. The machinist outfit who built the machine, still maintains it, and it's just neat. And I know to some extent, some of these things are proprietary, and people may not want to. But still, there's some pretty neat one-off machines and factories and assembly lines and tradesmen who are doing trades that nobody even knows about, that are probably really highly skilled. And I would love to find a way to give them a little more
shine some light on those guys.
Something really like good. That.
Adam, one factory tour that I got a big taste of, and then Nate and I are going to go back up and follow up on, is just one of the coolest things. So I carry a Leatherman multi-tool, right? I love Leatherman, and I have for a long time. Yeah. Well, they invited us up to do a factory tour, and their factory's just up in Portland, and it is the most amazing space-age thing I've ever seen. A Leatherman, the new Leathermans have 2,000th clearances in between the blades in those little bitty things, and they're spitting them out of there. I don't remember the number, and I don't want to throw it out now because Nate and I are going to do this again, and Nate's going to produce a beautiful video of their space age incredible facility. And get this, I'm going to go up there with some little Damascus steel billets that I'm going to make out of cable, like cable off of one of the cats that Dad and I used to log with. I'm going to make some Damascus cable Damascus, and take it up there, and they're going to machine a couple of blades for a Leatherman out of the billet that I bring, and I'm going to get a chance to put that together right there in the middle of their factory. So we're getting excited about that.
Cool. That is way cool. Hopefully you can get that organized and get that set up, because I'll definitely like to see that.
Yeah.
And I know your viewers, that would be really cool. Get to see how they make or what their factory looks like and how they make their parts. Yeah. That would be good.
I tell you what, if you spilled your fried egg on the floor, and if it landed with the ketchup up, you could go ahead and eat it right off the floor, man. It is clean. You can't even imagine how clean that place is.
That's amazing. Very cool. Yeah. Well, hopefully you guys can get that set up.
Yeah, definitely. Well, thanks for coming on our show, Adam, and talking to us. We'll put links in the description for all the listeners below. We'll put links to the video you did of the vice handle for us. I think I thought that was just a great showcase of a lathe in general. It was just a great lathe project, and we talked a lot about lathes. And so, unless you got a better idea for a lathe video, I'll probably put that one up. And
that's a great one right there. Share that one. That was a project to work with you guys on.
Check this out, boys. As we go out the door, just look how beautifully that thing threads out until finally. Man, it's a long-winded thing. You got that in right to the end of that ball, man. I mean, it's just beautiful. Thanks, Adam.
Yeah.
All right, we'll catch you next time.
All right, thanks for having me on, man. It's been great talking to you both, and I've really enjoyed this. So thank you very much.
Come to Oregon.
We're going to come to Oregon. I promise you, we're going to get to come up there and visit you guys.
Right on.